everyone! Today I'm going to be doing a Q&A. Thank you to everybody that sent in their questions yesterday on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. So I'm just going to jump right in. There are quite a few to get through, so let's get started. Okay, so on Twitter, Melissa.Flutes asked, did you do grade exams? If so, what was the hardest thing? Sight reading, oral test, etc. So, thank you for the question, Melissa. Did you do grade exams? Yes, I did prepare for my grade 8 flute exam, but I didn't end up taking the test for some reason. I cannot remember. Many years ago. But I did prepare for it, so I knew that I was at grade 8 level at the time. For anyone that is thinking about doing grade exams, I would suggest you do them just so that you know what kind of level you're at, especially if you're going to audition for an orchestra or band. Sometimes they need to know what grade you're at. So yeah. On Instagram, Natalia8758 asks, how did you find the passion to play the flute? Well, long story short, I wanted to choose the violin, but my sister had already chosen it. So that's why I went for the flute. And I was so excited to receive my flute, I remember. And I remember the first time I tried to play it, I got a sound out, and that encouraged me so much. So I'd say the day that I got my flute was when I had a passion for it. B White 2902 asks, how old were you when you started flute? I was about 12 years old, around about that age when I started the flute, only because my school started offering lessons at the school, so that was really great. And prior to that, I learnt the recorder for quite a number of years, so that helped me transition into the flute. Yeah. Jessica104 asks, if you could learn any other instrument in band other than flute and piccolo, what would you play? I'm not going to limit this to just band, but I have picked up many other instruments over the years. I had drum lessons for a while, I had guitar lessons for a while, I'd like to have singing lessons in the future, but then I also like string instruments. In particular, I love the cello and the way it sounds. So I think if I hadn't picked the flute, I would have either picked the cello or probably drums. I'm not too sure. I like both. Okay, I hope I'm not butchering this name, but Mashibayama asks, if you are not a musician, what do you do for life? I'm sorry about my English. Kisses from Brazil. I love your work. It's amazing. Thank you very much. Okay, if I wasn't a musician, what would I be doing? I would probably be doing something creative. I like making things and building things, so I don't know. I also like teaching, so maybe I would have considered to be a teacher. But yeah, something creative. Grace N asks, what flute do you have? I get this question a lot, and I have a Powell flute. It's an American brand, and it's the, it's the Signature Series. I'm not too sure if they do the Signature Series anymore. I don't know, you'd have to look on their website. But before I had this Powell flute, I had a student Yamaha, a Yamaha student model flute. And that was my first flute, and I've only had 2 flutes in my lifetime. So if I were to buy a new flute, I'd probably think about getting a Miyazawa or an Altus or a Haynes. I'm not too sure. I'd have to go in store and try out a bunch of flutes, but I know Altus is very popular amongst flute players. So Jelly asks, what are your tips for counting time, and what are your tips for playing the high notes like F and G? Also, why did you start to play the flute? Love ya. So what are my tips for counting time? Number 1 tip is use a metronome. Use a metronome for everything, whether it's technique or your piece that you're working on. Always use a metronome, and that's sure to keep you in time. And what are your tips for playing the high notes? So there are quite a few things that you need to master to be able to play the high notes. I say master because you can't just put 2 and 2 together and bam, you have beautiful high notes. You have to practice a lot. So breath control, so support from your diaphragm, and a small embouchure pushing forward, not smiling like that, because if you smile, it squashes your embouchure and your notes will sound squashed. So a nice round pushed forward, tiny embouchure, and lots of breath support. Also, why did you start to play the flute? As I said before, my sister picked the violin and I did not want to play the same instrument as her, so I chose the flute. Okay, I'm sorry again if I'm butchering your name, but Crazy Kaleli, you probably know who you are, asks, play one of the most complicated songs you've ever played. So that piece that I just attempted to play was the G Major Concerto by Mozart, and it's not the most complicated flute piece, but it's the most requested at auditions. So if you're going to audition for an orchestra, that's the piece that they're going to ask you to play the majority of the time. So it's important to get it perfect. Okay, next question. Candy Spat asks, I really want to learn to play the flute because it fascinated me since childhood. How much time did you dedicate towards it as far as the beginner level is concerned? I'm a big fan. Keep uploading awesome videos. Thank you, Candy, for your question. When I first started to play the flute, I had a lesson each week. So I had something to work towards each week. So I probably say half an hour or 15 minutes to half an hour every single day. Chinwen0313 asks, how do you choose the songs from your flute video? So I'm guessing you're asking how I choose the songs that I play on my YouTube channel. I just play what I like, and I normally like popular songs or songs that are on the charts. But there are a few random songs in there as well, or pieces that I just personally like. I personally like everything, but the majority seems to be the ones that are really popular at the moment. But I also really like movie music, so I've done the songs from Jurassic Park, Home Alone, E.T., Pirates of the Caribbean. One of my favorite composers is John Williams. I love all of his music. I think he is amazing. Yeah, I choose the songs that I really like. Also, they need to be lyrical, because if they are more speech-like, then playing it on flute would sound really boring, especially if the song is quite monotonous. So yeah, I try and pick songs that are also suited for the flute. Lucy Luo 13 asks, why did you want to play the flute, and where are the pros and cons of this instrument? I'm guessing she's asking what are the pros and cons of this instrument. Why did you want to play the flute? Kind of touched on that a bit earlier. So the pros is that it's tiny and you can take it anywhere, and that's one pro. The second pro is it's a very melodic instrument, meaning it's the closest instrument to mimic the human voice, which means composers give the flute lots of melody lines. So, for example, if you're playing in an orchestra and you are the second violin, there's lots of ching, 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 whereas flutes get lovely runs and beautiful melodies. And yeah, it just sounds really pretty as well. From Facebook, Julio Mata asks, have you performed with an orchestra? Yes, Julio, I have. In fact, that is what I wanted to become. I wanted to become a flute player in an orchestra. But when I was in high school, I did play with the youth orchestra, the National Youth Orchestra in my hometown. And then I went on to play in the professional orchestra when I was in university, and I played in university orchestras. So yes, I've played in an orchestra, and I've also played a concerto with me standing in front of an orchestra and me being kind of the attraction, I guess. And actually the piece that I attempted to play before, the G major concerto, is one that I played with an orchestra, which was the most amazing thing. It was my debut performance with an orchestra, and yeah, it was such a great experience. So I would definitely recommend anybody that has the opportunity to play with an orchestra, go for it. And my last question is from Wonderson David, and he asks, how often do you practice? How many days a week and how many hours a day? So I kind of answered this in a previous question. When I first started, I'd practice 15 minutes to half an hour. That's still in school, and when I got to high school, I would practice an hour a day, bearing in mind that I have a lesson each week. And then when I got to university, I practiced many more hours than that. I practiced about 8 hours a day. Broken up, of course, not one continuous spiel, but just, in little bits and pieces. And then when I did my master's degree, still I aimed for 8 hours, but that wasn't always the case. But I definitely aim for at least 5 hours every single day. Yes, that's a lot of hours. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed that and it was informative. And I will see you in my next one. Bye!